Madam President, I rise to speak for just a few moments on a very special anniversary that we're celebrating, not just here in Washington, but around the country, and that is the 40th anniversary of the Close-Up Foundation. Familiar to us all, it is a foundation that was started in 1971. Close-Up has worked for 4 decades to promote responsible and informed participation in the democratic process through Washington-based civic education programs and classroom publications. I had the pleasure myself, Madam President, of participating in one of the first ever Close-Up programs back in 1972. So I was the second year when the program was in its fledgling stage. Little did I believe then or know then that I would be a member of the United States Senate, but I can remember the tremendous impact that that program had on me at that age. It was the first time I had ever visited Washington, D.C., and I can tell you without the Close-Up program, I probably would not have made that trip until many years later. But it made a lasting impression on me, and I believe gave me some idea back then of a potential career in public service. So I am very proud to be an alum of this important program, and I'm delighted to help celebrate that tonight later at a reception for the 40th anniversary, which is today. Close-Up's mission is to inform, educate, and inspire young people to be active citizens in our democracy. Close-Up seeks to create a generation of Americans that exercise their rights and accept the responsibilities of citizenship. Each year, Close-Up serves thousands of high school and middle school students and their teachers on Washington-based government and citizenship education programs. These programs demonstrate that an active citizenry is necessary for the perpetuation of our democracy, and they provide students with the knowledge and skills to participate firsthand, hands-on. Seeing is believing, being here in Washington, seeing the buildings, experiencing firsthand the ways the Senate and the House operate, seeing the Supreme Court in action leaves a lasting impression, believe me, on these students. Since the 1970s, I know that my colleagues will join me in the pride that 750,000 students and teachers from around the country have participated in Close-Up programs. Participating students return to their schools and share with their classrooms, with their student bodies, what they learned and experienced. So while we've had 750,000 students participate, we have directly touched millions of students and teachers and family members as these students go back and relay their very fine experiences. So in other words, Madam President, this isn't just a tour of Washington. It's not just a tour of the buildings. It's an interactive, hands-on experience for young middle school and high school students to really have a better understanding of how their government operates. And if you think about it, you know, they understand by maybe reading the paper and talking to friends how their local government operates. They get a sense of how their state governments operate, but without a real opportunity to visit the nation's capital, which many of these students might not have, how will they really get a feel for what goes on here, which is very, very important. Each year, Close-Up Washington program participants engage in 1,000 meetings with members of Congress and their staffs on Capitol Hill. Our Capitol's institutions and historic sites are used as classrooms to help students explore the links between history and contemporary political issues. It brings it alive to them. It makes it real for them, and that's why it's so important for us to continue this program. Students also learn and practice the habits of active, effective citizenship with an intense emphasis on civil discourse. I think, and finally, Madam President, one of the most important and commendable aspects of the Close-Up program is its accessibility to economically disadvantaged students. And I want to take a minute to stress this. There are many programs that are sponsored directly or indirectly by the federal government that allow students to come to Washington. And then, of course, there are many privately funded activities. But this is the only federal program that I know that really reaches out in a special way to students that would be unable to come under any other circumstance. They just couldn't afford it. Their families can't afford it. And so it would be out of reach for many of them. That's what's so important about Close-Up. The other important thing, it's not just for the kids in the class that are 4.0 students. Many students come here on academic scholarships, or they're chosen because of their academic prowess. This is really for the average kid, as well as those that are academically achieving academically. But it's for the average kid, the kid that we depend on to be our citizens for the future. And so because of that, it's especially important for us, I think, to continue this opportunity. Close-Up provides a diverse program experience for its participants and has provided over $100 million in fellowship assistance to students and teachers from underserved communities through public funding and a committed network of corporate and philanthropic donors. So with the federal money that serves as its base, we get additional support from individuals and from foundations to leverage that resource, to provide an opportunity for kids who would never be able to see with their own eyes the Capitol or the White House, would never be able to walk into the Supreme Court to actually see it and touch it and to experience it. If it sparks an interest in 1/4 of the children that come, that would be great. But I think it sparks an interest in almost 100% of them in some way. When they leave here, they're forever changed in a positive way and can become real active participants in this democracy. So at a time when students throughout the United States show an alarming lack of proficiency in civics, as demonstrated by a recent result in the National Assessment of Education Progress, testing 4th, 8th, and 12th graders, Close-Up continues to work to engage young people so that they understand the political process, they find their own voice, and they embrace the rights and responsibilities of citizenship, which is indeed a gift, and they learn to appreciate that gift and to participate more fully in this democracy. So, Madam President, I want to commend and congratulate Close-Up for 40 years of excellent service. I hope it will continue for another 40 years, and I'm proud to be a strong supporter of the Close-Up program and urge my colleagues, as we have an opportunity, to support the funding for this program, even in these tough budgetary times. And I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.